Hello everyone, I hope you are doing well. A few days ago, some pharmaceutical companies delivered some encouraging news about COVID-19 vaccine development. More importantly, Pfizer announced that their vaccine is more than 90% effective. The announcement is considered as a sign that the pharmaceutical industry may soon have a viable way to control a disease that has killed more than 1 million lives globally. The reason I'm saying this is that due to the COVID-19 pandemic, my daily routine has been greatly affected. For example, I have to work at home most of the time. I cannot go to my studio to teach my students. Furthermore, I have to postpone my online teaching plan since I need to shoot instructional videos with my students, but it is very risky to do so at this moment. This is why I really hope that we will have the vaccine soon so that I can return to my normal daily routine as before. Life is short enough to be locked at home. At the same time, to make the best of a bad situation, I will keep working on creating this video series. Like I said before that I cannot do anything about the virus, but at least I can contribute something positive to our community by sharing my knowledge and experience of the internal styles. So please keep watching my videos, and I hope they can improve your existing practice. If so, I would consider my efforts worthwhile. Today, I'd like to introduce two popular but misunderstood martial proverbs. The first one is 南拳北腿 or Southern Fist and Northern Leg. The second one is 立断易达 or force stops but mind continues. So let's get started. First, 南拳北腿 or Southern Fist and Northern Leg. When you watch Chinese Kung Fu movies, you may have noticed that this proverb many times. It seems that in south of China, martial art practice mainly focuses on using fist, and in north of China, people prefer kicking as its main practice. Even more, some people give some explanation and justification that since in the south of China, normally people are not physically as strong as people in the north. They have to develop their upper body techniques so that they can move fast. They also explain that in northern China, people are normally stronger and taller. Therefore, they prefer kicking. It sounds reasonable, but is it true? When you think about it, of course, the answer is no. Let me explain the reason here. First, yes, it is true that generally, people in the north are taller and have more upper body strength and a broader structure than people in the south. Then the logic based on this presumption is that southern people should focus more on kicking or leg work since the leg is stronger than the arm. Then, following the same token, the northern people should focus on hand technique since they are stronger and have no need to develop leg techniques. Therefore, using the physical condition to explain the different approach in focusing hand or leg techniques between south and north is incorrect. Second, in Chinese history, there was neither enough martial communication between the south and the north nor many direct martial art competitions between these two regions. Only recent Kung Fu movies from the last few decades have been promoting the idea of openness in terms of martial communication between South and North. In reality, the martial art community in China is still not as open as it is in movies. Furthermore, there are many like techniques in southern styles of martial art as well as all the three internal styles which are actually northern styles, but none of those have kicking techniques as their focus. So there must be another reason for the popular term 南拳北腿. Then what is it? Now let me explain. The Song Dynasty was an important period in Chinese history, which lasted about 319 years from 960 to 1279 AD. The first emperor of the Song Dynasty was Zhao Kuangyin, a military general before becoming the emperor. He created a martial art style named Taizu Changquan. Taizu was the title since the first emperor of a dynasty was usually called Taizu, or the great ancestor. Changquan means long fist. Please keep in mind that the name Changquan or long fist here is different from the long fist in modern wushu. Sometimes people call the style Taizu Changquan 32 posture, Taizu fist, and so on. In the Ming Dynasty, this style became very popular and was recorded in many martial training documents such as 绩效新书 by General Qi Jiguang, Shaolin Stick Training Principles by Cheng Chongdou. Also, if you practice Chen style Tai Chi, you would find that most of all the 32 postures are used in Chen style Tai Chi. This is the proof that Chen style Tai Chi was developed based on the Ming Dynasty military training manuals. Around the same time, another famous martial general who later became a monk created a famous style of martial art. His name was Kunlun, a religious name after he became a monk. The historical reason for a military general becoming a monk was that he lost in the war between the Song Dynasty and the later Zhou Dynasty. With his 200 surviving soldiers, he fled to Shandong province. Shandong province is the big region in the north of China. The famous Tai Mountain is in this province. With his soldiers, he settled in a temple called Long Tan Si, or Dragon Lake Temple, in Linqing, a small town in Shandong province. By the way, in 1964, the government cut Linqing into two parts, one part belonging to Shandong and the other belonging to Hebei province. Today, the temple is part of Hebei province, but originally it was in Shandong province. So, in order to preserve and propagate his practice, Kunlun taught his students in Longquan Temple. His style mainly focused on Tui Gong. Now, I have to explain what Tui Gong is. In my prior video, I talked about the martial proverb, 练武不练功，到老一场功, or techniques without basics are hollow. Tui means leg, Gong means basics. Together, Tui Gong means training focused on leg basics. Be careful, Tui Gong or leg basics is different from leg techniques or leg skill. In that style, they emphasize on Tui Gong or leg basics since they believe that the martial power is from the leg, then moves to the hips, and then moves to the arm and hand. So, any attack on the arm and hand should be generated by leg and transferred by the hips. This is the meaning of 腿功 or leg basics. It is not about kicking, knee attack, or whatever related to any specific leg techniques or skill. It is a principle, not a technique. So, the leg basics from the Long Tan Temple are called 弹腿. Tan is from the second word of the name of the temple, Long Tan Temple, or Dragon Leg Temple. And 腿 means leg, or leg basics. Together, the full translation is Dragon Leg Temple Leg Basics. There are 10 small routines of this style. In the Ming Dynasty, there was a very important military document called 武备志, or records of armament and military provisions. This book is the most comprehensive military book in Chinese history. It was compiled by Mao Yuanyi in 1621, according to the famous military training documents. This is the huge book containing 240 volumes and has 10,405 pages. In 武备志, it records that in the beginning of the Song dynasty, the Song Emperor Zhao Kuangyin organized a martial event in Changsha, a province of China. In this event, 18 styles of martial arts were recognized and ranked according to their efficiency and popularity. Of course, the style created by the emperor himself, the Taizu Changquan, or the long fist, was ranked as the number 1. Then the number 2 style was the Tan Tui, the style created by monk Kunlun in the temple in Shandong. In ancient Chinese culture, the south direction has been considered number 1, while the north has been considered number 2. It's called north according to the 5 elements and 5 direction concept. Let me be clear. The numbers are just an order of specification. They do not signify any preferences or importance over one another. Therefore, the emperor's style is in the south direction and the Tan Tui is in the north direction. So, the long fist is the south and the Tan Tui is the north. Or, the south direction is the fist and the north direction is the leg. From then on, people started using 南拳北腿 or south fist and north leg to indicate long fist and 弹腿 or 南拳北腿. Furthermore, originally, there were 10 small routines in 弹腿. Now, after centuries of development, this style has more than 30 routines, and there are about 50 weapons forms. Also, there are different branches of this style as well, including Muslim, Shaolin, and Jingwu styles. Jingwu style was created by Huo Yuanjia in Tianjin. By the way, there are 12 routines in Shaolin style, which was added 2 more routines based on the original style. Then, during 1920s, since many people in the martial art community forgot the historical background of the term, people in the community started falsely believing that southern styles most used hands and northern styles focus on leg techniques. It is just wrong. This is the explanation of 南拳北腿 or southern fist and northern leg. So, does this proverb end here? As you may have guessed, the answer is no. And that's one of the reasons I'm doing this video. So, what is the next part of this proverb? It is 西棍东枪 or Western stick and the Eastern spear. The second part of this proverb is not that well known in the community compared to the first one. Actually, the second part has the similar historical background as the first part. In many military training documents from the Ming Dynasty, when introducing the stick practice, very often its source was traced back to the northwest area, which is an area where many Muslim people have been living. Well, many spear styles such as the Yang family spear was very popular in Shandong, Henan area, which were considered as the east area of China back to that period of time. This is why the second part of this proverb is 西棍东枪, or Western stick and Eastern spear. In my martial art teaching, I really prefer the spear practice. In my learning and teaching experience over 40 years, I have noticed that spear training provides the practitioner with holistic strength training compared to other weapons. I believe that the best way to develop the internal style practice is to practice some weapons beside empty hand training. Also, I believe that if you want to choose one weapon to practice, the spear should be the top choice. I will make some videos to talk about it in the future. It has been long enough to introduce this proverb. In the interest of time, I will not elaborate on weapons training in today's video. However, since I did mention some weapon training in today's video, I'd like to introduce a simple exercise based on spear training in the demonstration section. So, before we go to the second proverb, let me demonstrate some spear training exercise. Demonstration. In today's video, since I have mentioned the spear practice as an important part of Chinese martial art system, especially the benefit of spear practice is dramatic, I'd like to introduce a simple movement. The objective of this practice is to be able to send the force to the spearhead, and being able to shake the spearhead is a key point in the beginning. To achieve that, you have to integrate the spear as an extended part of your body so that you can control the spear naturally like you control your parts of your body. Don't forget, this requires long-term practice, just like any other skills. Okay, this is one of the interesting but important and practical methods in spear practice. It can help us to strengthen the body and improve our force, power, structure, coordination in internal style practice. So what you can do is that you keep your feet naturally apart and try to send the force, the power from here, from the end of the spear, and then through the spear body to the spear head. So objective is to bend the spear head, make small arc or even bigger arc or circular motion by the spear head, by sending the force from here. Do this movement naturally and do not use hard force, and slowly with time you will see the difference, which is the impact on your body and in practice. So just naturally, slowly practice this. Okay, you can practice this many times, or as fast and slow as you want. Okay, then. Okay. Now, let's talk about the second martial proverb, 义力断义连, or force stops but mind continues. To understand this proverb well, we have to first learn about its origin. So, where was this proverb from? Is it an old martial art concept? I have to say no. Actually, this term originated in Chinese calligraphy and Chinese painting, especially Chinese calligraphy. Chinese calligraphy uses a particular term to describe how to connect different strokes together. The term is 笔断意连, or disconnected strokes feel connected. 笔 means stroke, 断 means disconnect or stoppage, 意 means feeling, 连 means connect. To demonstrate this concept, I'd like to use the character 水 or water to demonstrate it. You will see that instead of all of the strokes connecting together in writing, some of them will be physically disconnected, but still you can feel the connection and the coordination between the strokes. So in calligraphy, this is how we write the character water. Okay, it's like this. Right? But it's not necessary to connect all the strokes together. So like this is not, it's the wrong way. Okay, now let them show you the wrong way. So like, right, compared to this one, right? You see the difference, right? See the difference. That is the right one. This is one not that artistic. So in calligraphy, we do not appreciate this kind of writing. Then, about 100 years ago, martial artists began to use this term to express a martial concept, 力断意连, or force stops but mind continues. So, in calligraphy or painting, the term is called 笔断意连, or in martial training, it becomes 力断意连. Only one character is different between these two terms. As the meaning, it is slightly different between these two terms. Now, let me explain the martial meaning of this proverb. To understand this term well, we have to know what 断 or stoppage is in a martial context. 断 or stoppage has two meanings. The first one is literally when a movement stops. Another meaning is that it takes too long for a force to change its direction, or a prolonged pause between two movements. It is much easier to see the first mistake, but it is not that easy to judge the second mistake since, according to common belief, as long as the movement is maintaining its movement, it is not considered as a 断 or stoppage. So we have to analyze both mistakes separately. To the first mistake, if a person issues force through a movement and the movement stops before reaching the target, it would be considered 断. The result is very obvious that the force does not have enough impact on the object. In a self-defense situation, the force cannot reach the opponent or just the surface of the attacking area of the opponent, which is not able to generate enough impact. For example, when you try to push someone away, the right approach is to send the force to the center of that person, so that the force will shift the center of gravity of that opponent. Then the person will be moved. But if your force only managed to reach the surface of the opponent without shifting the center of gravity, then it will be considered 断 or stoppage. So traditionally, people use the proverb that 推要推到头 or push to the end to describe the correct execution of this movement. The word end here means the furthest place of the opponent that you can reach, or else it would be considered 断 or stoppage. This is the first scenario of 断. To the second mistake, if it takes too long for a force to change its direction, it will be considered duan or stoppage as well. We all know that martial art movement is the dynamic way to manage speed, direction, and timing. It is especially important when the force changes its direction. Traditionally, when changing the direction or in the end of the first part of the movement, it is called the end of the old force. Then the next phrase is the beginning of the new force. So there are two phrases here. One is the end of the old force, and the other one is the beginning of the new force. There is a gap between these two phrases. Traditionally, this gap is considered the most vulnerable period to a practitioner and must be managed well in a self-defense situation through practice. Therefore, if the gap is too long or managed incorrectly such that it becomes a weak point during execution of a force, it would be considered duan or stoppage, even though the movement is still on its way to the target. In Mandarin, people call it 旧力已去，新力未生. So, to prevent this problem from happening, martial artists use the proverb 力断一连. Force stops, but mind continues to guide the practice. One should always keep the mind focused in executing any force, especially when changing the direction. As long as the mind is continuous, our physical body can quickly react to specific situations created by the changing of the opponent's movement. Maintaining a mentally focused state in any situation is the key aspect emphasized by this proverb. Again, I would like to ask the same question. Does the proverb stop here? No, it does not. So, what is the next part of this proverb? It is 意断神连, or if the mind discontinues, then the spirit continues. To understand the difference between 意 and 神, or mind and the spirit, originally, 神 and 意 are two terms in Taoism. Also, it seems that these two terms are identical. Actually, they are two totally different terms. Literally speaking, 意 means mind and 神 means spirit. Compared to the modern psychological terms, 意 means conscious mind and 神 means subconscious mind. In martial practice, 意, mind or conscious mind, indicates some mental activities such as focus, concentration, or intent, which is active action. It can be used to guide and direct the physical movements consisting of any martial art practice in terms of initiating a specific action, while Shen, spirit or subconscious mind, indicate the uncontrolled part of the mind that reflects the state of alertness and reflex in a self-defense situation. Therefore, the second part of the proverb, the 意断神连, which translates to, if the mind stops, then the spirit continues, emphasize that you should maintain the right mental state in practice so that your mind can subconsciously respond to any changes caused by the external situation. Our subconscious reaction or reflex is the result of a long-term practice instead of a naturally born technique. The whole proverb now becomes 力断意连, 意断神连. Again, the term mind, spirit used here are not magic and should never be considered as such. They are very common terms used in help us understand the mechanism of a movement and reaction in practice. So, to summarize this proverb, in practice, you have to pay attention to the word mind. Originally, the word differentiates the internal style practice to external practice. Unfortunately, many people in the martial art community today have forgotten about it already. I will explain it more in a future video. Takeaways. In today's video, 2 proverbs have been introduced. However, some other proverbs have been mentioned in the process. First, 南拳北腿, the southern fist and the northern leg. It does not mean that people in the south prefer using the fist and the people in the north are good at using fist. Southern fist and the northern leg means 2 specific styles. Second, 西棍东枪, western stick, eastern spear, tells us that in different regions, spear and stick are more popular than others. Third, so the combined proverb is southern fist and northern leg, western stick and eastern spear. Fourth, there are 2 types of duan or stoppage here, and both of them should be avoided. 旧力已去, 新力未生. One vulnerable period is between the end of the previous force and the beginning of the new force. The other is when the physical movement stops. Fifth, the second combined martial proverb is 力断义连, 义断神连, which translates to force stops, mind continues. Mind stops, spirit continues. That's end today's video. Thank you for watching. See you next time and enjoy your practice.